Hello and welcome back to the Up All Night Book Club. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Abby, and today we're joined by special guest Leslie Alvarez.
Hello, everyone. I'm Leslie, and I'm currently an English literature major at UCF. My favorite genres are contemporary and magical realism.
All right, we're happy to have you, Leslie. Today we're discussing Beach Read by Emily Henry. And to give everyone a quick little synopsis about the book, romance novelist January Adams has had a rough year. At her father's funeral, a woman has revealed a long-term affair that started during her mother's second battle with cancer. Struggling to understand all this, she decides to spend the summer in her father's love shack while she attempts to sell it and get over her writer's block. This vacation from hell gets worse when she discovers her literary rival Gus Everett lives right next door. However, the two quickly bond over their writer's block struggles and decide to challenge each other to write books from each other's genres. Gus would write a happy ending, and January would write a realistic one. Several adventures later, the two admit long-kept feelings for each other and decide to get together. Love isn't easy, though. January still struggles with what it means to be in love, and Gus's past relationships and trauma provide some great brooding drama. In the end, though, the two decide to try and make it work, and the book ends with Gus proposing via sign outside of her window. All right. I'm definitely going to struggle with January's name today.
Call her Jay.
But so everyone, do we want to get started with what our rating was and maybe describe the book in 3 books or less?
Okay. Should I go first?
You go for it.
As a special guest. So my rating was a 2 out of 5 at most. With some preservation, I could bump it up to a 2.5 out of 5, but and I think I would call this, like, in 3 words, I would say, one, it's a little quirky. I'm not a big fan of that word, but definitely quirky. I think I'd write delightful at some parts, like to refer to some parts of it, and too serious as another. I know that's 2 words, which makes it like a 4 or 5 words, but that's what I would use. Those are the words I'd use.
Okay, yeah, I also rated it 2 out of 5 stars. I wrote a whole pros and cons list. I'm not sure if you guys want to hear the whole thing. I'll read a couple bullet points. So for the pros, I thought it was an interesting POV because I don't usually read romance, but from what I looked up in my research, like apparently it switches back and forth on rom-coms, like from the male and female perspective. And I usually don't read like female perspective books. So it was interesting to see like a romance from that point of view. Gus was a very interesting character. And it was very easy to read. And that leads into the cons. The first con, it was very easy to read. There wasn't much depth to the book. I ended up skimming. Where was it? It was around the drive-in movie scene. I ended up skimming the rest of the book. I think that was like at the 40% mark. And I really did not like January. She was just too angsty. Just woe is me. There's like a quote in the beginning. It was like, maybe a world-ending asteroid would take me out before I was forced to go inside. Talking about like going in the summer house. I almost closed the book right then and there. So yeah, that was on page 4.
I'll let you know where I had to close the book, and it was also by Mrs. January Andrews' words. So I'll let you know.
Yeah. If I had to choose 3 words for the book, unrelatable. I felt like I couldn't relate to any of the characters. If we're going with terms, I'll say not for me. And I'll also say very sweet because there was a lot of sweet moments in it. I'll say that. Like, I like the ending with the dad's letters. That was a very, very nice moment there.
Yeah. All right. So I guess I'm the odd one out. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was a super cute little no thought sort of read where, like you said, Jonathan, it was so easy. I did this in one sitting and it was just a good time. I was at a bit of a book slump and this really got me out of it. And if I could describe it in 3 words or less, I would say there was no beach. I want to know where the title came from. I think they were on a beach once and they both said like, I don't like it. So But yeah, that's my thoughts. I'm ready to play devil's advocate tonight. So
yeah, I mean the lakes up in Michigan are pretty nice. Like I've been up to the Great Lakes. It is kind of beachy. It's not quite,
those aren't
Florida beaches.
Those are shores.
Yeah.
Shore reads.
Yeah, lake read would be more accurate.
Or even like cabin read. Everyone loves a good cabin read.
Yeah.
So all right, so let's dive right in to what we thought about the book. We've all read it, so we both know that Gus and January have very contrasting sort of worldviews. Gus is very like, woe is me, the world is empty. And January is very much happiness and butterflies, and everyone is like, has a rainbow at the end. Which one do you believe in more? Like, which character did you relate to more?
So personally for me, I think it kind of depends on my mood and maybe even the day of the week. I can either be Gus or I can be January. But I don't like Jonathan said it's a bit unrelatable. So I can like in simplest terms, I think it would be just a healthy mix of both. Like I'm not disillusioned by the beauty of life in that very fairy princess sort of way that January is. But I'm not disillusioned by the darkness either. Like I try not to get to that tropey sort of darkness that Gus kind of falls into. It genuinely just depends on, the circumstance. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think mine has changed with time. Like I used to be more like optimistic, more of like January's point of view. And as I'm growing up and experiencing like the world and life more, I think I'm shifting more towards Gus's. I'm not quite like completely over there, but I'm also somewhere towards the middle, but leaning towards Gus's point of view, more of a realistic, I guess, worldview.
Mm.
I definitely agree with you, Leslie, that especially at the beginning of the book, January and Gus seemed like caricatures. Almost in that January, like her name is freaking January.
Yeah.
And she likes wearing quirky shoes.
Yeah.
And she writes romance novels. Like, I don't know. Especially, I don't know, have either of y'all seen Gilmore Girls?
Yes.
You know that outfit when she was like, oh no, I look like I'm straight out of like a 2002 Britney Spears music video. It reminded me of when Lorelai goes to Rory's school for the first time and she's wearing like the exact same outfit. I was like, these are just like characters of people. I can't take them seriously.
Yeah, but there's a point that she wears Daisy Dukes, doesn't she?
Yeah, that's the scene.
Yep.
But I definitely relate a lot more to January's worldview, in that no matter how tough or hard life is, there's always something beautiful to find in it. And just because something is unrealistic doesn't make it not good or not respectable. And so I definitely relate more to January from that aspect. But I definitely agree that like you should be a good mix of like healthy skepticism and optimism. So thinking of like Gus and January's worldview, like, do you guys even believe in like this happily ever after that even at the end of the book, we get that. We very much get this love actually sort of proposal from Gus where he like raises a sign through the window and is like, will you marry me? Do you guys believe in that little kind of happily ever after, like soulmate kind of deal?
Personally, I don't, but not in a pessimistic or sad way. I just think that life has too many ups and downs just for there to be a simple happily ever after. Like the only ever after there is, death, as far as we know. So it's just going to be like, they get married and then some days they're going to have like big fights. And then some days they're going to completely love each other and be completely, lovey-dovey honeymoon about each other. And then other days are just like, I can't look at you right now. And then it's just, I don't know. I think you can definitely find a soulmate and somebody who's just kind of like the perfect person for you. But happily ever afters, I'm not so sure about.
Yeah, I think if you end the story too early, then you'll get your happily ever after. But if you finish it out, then I don't think there's happily ever afters. I think there's happy, but everything has its ups and downs, and a happily ever after is just ending on a peak. There's more to the story after that.
Yeah, I think there's like a quote where she's like, "I have happily for now, and I'm okay with that."
Oh, that's perfect.
Which I really liked. I don't know necessarily like that I agree with like this idea of happily ever after, but I definitely believe like there is someone out there for someone. Just because like, I don't know, it's a beautiful thing to believe in and it doesn't have too much harm, I think.
Yeah. Why wouldn't you want to believe in it anyways? You know, it's kind of fun, makes life more interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that like the 100% perfect soulmate person that was, you know, created in the stars for you exists, but I think someone who makes life seem that way does exist, I think. And maybe even several people, you know, platonic or not.
I know we talked about this a lot in our Evelyn Hugo discussion, I think, and the one, which was our last episode, because that whole book centers around like people finding their supposed soulmate. Yep. But I don't know. I feel like it changes on the day whether or not I believe in soulmates. I was thinking about this the other day. I don't think I believed in soulmates until I worked at a nursing home for a really long time. And I saw this like really old couple and they were walking together and they would just like randomly together start singing Frank Sinatra. And I was like, oh, they do exist. And it's those two people.
It's adorable.
Yeah, it's so cute. Oh, they were so cute. But I don't know. I don't know. I like the idea of happily ever after, even if it isn't real. I like the idea of it.
Yes.
I think that's why a lot of books end that way. I guess gives people hope.
Yeah, they, like you said, they end a little too early for you to see the rough edges of it all.
But Jonathan, explain your worldview on, you know, soulmates and all that stuff.
Oh, I don't want to go into too much detail and like going off too deep on a tangent, but basically I had an ex that constantly told us we were soulmates, and we were very much not. So that just kind of like put me off it, I guess. So
yeah, that's completely valid.
I think you can be happy with somebody, and you don't have to be soulmates.
Exactly. I think there's definitely people out there who can make you feel that way. You don't necessarily have to be soulmates, but you know, there are moments that you catch yourself and you're like, wow, like we were definitely meant to be for this moment or for these, you know, 2 years that we're together or something like that. You know, people who make life seem magical in a very Neil Gaiman-esque way, you know, adding that in there. But yeah.
Well, I think we're all in agreement then about like happily ever afters and like all that. But
yes.
At the end of the book, it kind of wraps things up very neatly, not necessarily with a happily ever after for January and Gus, but maybe more so with her father. She like forgave him for everything that happened. She read her letters. Do you guys agree with that? With her forgiving her father?
I think so. I mean, in his letters, he laid it all out and he wanted her to know the truth. Of course, not everything he did was morally right, but he was honest, and it's hard to stay mad at somebody that you love, especially when you don't have them anymore.
I agree with that. I mean, I think in terms of forgiveness, I think that's more about January for January. You know, her dad's gone. So, you know, there's not much she can do but kind of forgive him in her heart, whether she wants to or not. And then forgiveness in this term, I think it provides a lot more closure, which is what she needs. I don't think forgiveness should have been kind of like the end game for like her relationship with her father. I think what's more important is like closure and then kind of moving on and then just also being able to see things from his perspective. Not that it makes things right. I just think putting herself in her father's shoes would have given her a lot more closure as well. Just my 2 cents.
I think not forgiving her father just would have caused a lot of turmoil for the rest of her life and just really would have eaten away at her.
Exactly. Like, it just, forgiveness or not, I think, like considering her relationship with her father, as much as we know about it, I think forgiveness is very easy, like a very easy point to get to. But whether that forgiveness provides closure for her, I think that's what's more important. Can she move on? And what does it mean for her? Well, how about you, Abby?
Yeah, I definitely agree that like the forgiveness was a lot less about whether or not he was a good person for his actions, and a lot more about January finding closure for herself in this chapter in her life in order to become herself again. That maybe that cheerful person was a bit disillusioned, and she had a good slice of reality. But by the end of the book, she is happier. I think we can all agree with that, because she found that closure with her father by forgiving him. I don't think he was a good dude.
Yeah.
But I definitely agree that it wasn't so much that her father deserved her forgiveness, but January needed that.
Yeah. It's what January deserved. She deserved to forgive him so she could have that kind of peace of mind in her life and be able to move forward and not continue in this like vicious cycle of, God, I can't believe my dad did this and that. It's just time to move on.
Yeah, I know, Jonathan, you said one of the reasons you didn't like this book was because at the beginning, when she hadn't forgiven her father, she very much was like, woe is me. Life sucks.
Yes. I don't know. It felt very corny, I guess. I don't know.
That's the perfect word for this book. Let me add that to my list.
I don't know. It felt like she just grated like my nerves for some reason in the beginning.
I mean, I think that's completely valid. I think corny is exactly how I felt about this book. Kind of, and if I really liked this book, I would have said something along the lines of, sappy and cheesy, but it fell into really corny, to a very corny hole. But, I'll get into more specific details, later.
No, like why did you think it was like corny rather than, cheesy, which perhaps has a bit of a more positive connotation?
Yeah. Okay. So there are certain lines in this book which I felt were kind of out of touch. And I don't mean that in like current times. It's just genuinely like it felt so corny. There's a point where she it's the very beginning, and January changes into a pizza print sweatshirt, and I was just like, oh my God. The visual image just kind of like broke, like I don't even know what to call it. It kind of like broke my own visual in my head. So like when there's like, let me pull it up right now. There's a scene where they're writing to each other with the notes, which that in itself, it could be a little cheesy, but then it fell right down to corny when I think it was like her that wrote "New phone, who this?" And oh my God, I face palmed. I was like, I cannot believe that it felt so corny. Like it, for a book that talks about like suicide cults, and I was just like, what is this? Sometimes like the humor in the book felt definitely flat. Like there's a point that her and Gus are kind of having a little banter moment, and then she goes into this mental tangent about how she's like trying to do this hand motion of playing a violin, but then she's like, oh, I didn't realize that I didn't even know how to play a violin, how to do the motion or something, and it kind of completely broke that narrative that was continuing on in my head. I was like, what is this? This is so corny. Like, let's get back into what we were talking about. Yeah, that's why it's corny for me.
So you think the book had a bit of like an identity crisis where it couldn't decide if it wanted to be, what's the name of it? Like a romantic drama or like a rom-com?
Yeah, like I think it was trying to make itself a bit too serious. It took itself a little bit too seriously at times. And I think I would have preferred it if it stayed a rom-com. Like, there's no problem in discussing such serious topics, but then it just kept switching back and forth and back and forth. Like, it gave me a bit of whiplash. I didn't know how to feel about it. Like, as like I was telling you earlier, like in the beginning I'd be like, I don't really like this book that much, and then they'd say something to one another. Like, they'd have a little bit of banter that I would really enjoy, that was kind of very typical of, you know, witty rom-coms, and be like, oh, maybe I do like this. And then suddenly Gus is married or was married, and like the cheating and this and that, I'd be like, what is happening here? Like, I wasn't sure what kind of point the book was trying to make.
I felt like that little plot line was ripped straight out of Grey's Anatomy. That like
Shonda Rhimes was a ghostwriter for Beach Read.
I don't know. What did you think, Jonathan? Do you think that it had like, it couldn't decide what it wanted to be?
Well, from the words of the author itself, this was a book about writer's block. So yeah, I think it did have a bit of an identity crisis, because I don't even think she really knew where she was going when she started it. And yeah, I totally agree with the humor. If the humor was like more aligned with my sense of humor, I think it would have like one up the book. Definitely fell flat and felt a little forced at times.
I loved those little stupid jokes. Like the new phone who does. I think I like when you said that was corny, I was like, I giggled at that, but like out loud. I thought it was so stupid. I loved it.
I was like affronted because it was so stupid. I was like, what is this?
Different types of humor. Yours is probably better. I will admit that.
No, it's not even about that, Abby. Come on.
No, it's I laugh because it is stupid. It was, I don't know. But you know, we talk a lot about how or in the book it talks a lot about how people don't take romance seriously. And perhaps maybe that was what the author was trying to do by introducing like this weird suicide cult. I don't want to say it was a subplot, because it was a rather large part of the book. Like we kind of all agree that was kind of poorly done, or
yes.
Do you guys want to expand on that a bit?
I have a lot of thoughts about that. I'll try to keep them as short as possible, and, you know, cut me off from talking like I'm a drunk at a bar and it's my 50th drink. Okay, cut me off. But I found it kind of, let's say, rich that she makes this whole point, but like how you said, Abby, it felt insecure at times, because, you know, she's Emily Henry and even January, they're trying to make this whole point about like the value of a good tropey rom-com or a good, you know, simple, happy romance book. And you know, why didn't it stay that way? You know, Beach Read had the potential to be a cheesy and fun and lighthearted rom-com, but in its own insecurity, it tried to make something much more serious of itself. Like, I take rom-coms very seriously. There's nothing to, you know, joke about when it comes to them. Maybe they're a little cheesy, a little sappy, but, you know, they're still good pieces of literature. But when you try to introduce all these super serious literary subplots that are just trying to make it much more serious than it is, it kind of just gets lost in its own rhetoric. Like, it genuinely, it's what it felt like. And that's initially what started turning me off from the book. Yeah. Oh, also one more point. There's a point that January is talking about herself as that, like she hates that she's limited to like women's fiction and like romance and all that stuff. But then she talks about there's this very specific scene. I don't have it underlined or anything, but she talks about girls who are like reading books inside like a bookstore or something like that. But then she realizes from like the tacky cover of like some dude like covered by flames, and she's like, oh, that could never be mine. And like that comment sort of rubbed me the wrong way, because I was like, so then you're better than those books? Like, you want to be all inclusive about like all sorts of fiction, but then she kind of has a holier than thou attitude about those types of books, like the mom erotica books and stuff like that. I just found that kind of rich as well, ironic almost.
Yeah, so you found like the halfway commentary on book shaming very hypocritical, you would say?
Yeah, at times, because I was like, I totally agree, but you're not practicing what you're preaching at times.
What about you, Jonathan? What do you have to say?
I don't think I've met anybody that's like never held romance as like a subpar genre of books or movies or anything. I mean, of course, is like I guess generalization that rom-coms are all cheesy and stuff, but like it doesn't have to be that way. I've watched some pretty good rom-coms that I enjoy. But going back to the whole like I guess not really subplot, the cult plot. I thought that was a great addition to the book. I thought that was what kept me reading. Because I almost did not finish the book. I told myself I get myself until 25% through. And I think about like right before that is when they agreed to like their pact with switching books or whatever. And then we found out about Gus's whole like side plot, and I'm like, okay, I want to see where this goes. So that kept me engaged. It was definitely used as like a device at some points. Like I forget his name. That one guy not showing up to the Olive Garden, turning that into a date.
Was
and it
Dave?
was Steve was his name. Okay, yeah.
Oh, Steve? I don't even know.
I thought it was very weird when Gus just grabbed January. He's like, I need you right now. The guy's at my house. I thought that was a little weird. And then when they slept together in the tent at the site, oh my gosh, I that was just weird.
Unsanitary.
Yes. I don't know how they could get in the mood with like that right next to them, but more power to them, I guess. But yeah, it definitely wasn't the focus, and I would have enjoyed it more if it was the focus, but that's not what the book was. Exactly. That wasn't the point of the book. So
I agree with you.
I'm seeing like a little bit of a trend between you guys in that you both sort of mentioned that the suicide subplot, although you agree didn't like necessarily fit, it was what kept you reading.
Yeah.
But for me, it was kind of the opposite. I felt really bad, kind of guilty at some points. I was like skimming through that. I was like, this is depressing. Where's my cheese? I don't want this.
I think personally for me, I liked the suicide cult plot mainly because it was just more interesting and not, I didn't like it as a part of a book. I liked it as kind of its own standalone type of thing. Like, I think at some point I annotated in the book, I was like, write the book. I want to read it. Like, please, I wanted, it was much more interesting to me than whatever was going on throughout Beach Read. So yeah, like I liked it respective from Beach Read. I think that's what I'll say. Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting seeing like the lengths that some authors will go in their research, like actually going out to these like sites where really terrible things happened and trying to figure out, what all happened. And I was actually surprised the site was still there after, how long was it in the book? Was it like 20 years or something? I can't remember how long it was since the new Eden incident happened. I was surprised like they didn't clear it out, that all the remains were still there and whatnot.
I think that makes for a really cool book, and I think I kind of hope that this book would be more about that, some of that research, but it was kind of a subplot, the research that they both go into.
I feel like that idea, they kind of touch briefly on this, but like the morality of being inspired by these really tragic events. They talk to people who were really deeply affected by a suicide cult. And I wish they talked a bit more about like the morality of doing that, like taking real people's stories and using that to create fictional pieces, where maybe things end up a little bit better than in real life. Like, I don't know. I guess like the victims in the book, at least, were very like, I'm okay with this. I know what you're doing. I just want to get my story out. But I think that would have been like a really interesting topic. But again, like not for beach read.
Not for beach read, like besides, or I guess separated from beach read, it makes a really good book. But why was it in beach read in the first place is the question.
Well, we've kind of talked about this already, but this idea of book shaming is really prevalent to January, especially, she feels like, as a romance writer. Do you guys feel that that's like a thing, that like if you read a certain type of book or if you read a certain genre of books, you're like less respected in either like the literary community or just by society in general?
No, I don't.
Oh.
Sorry.
You go first.
Okay, I was gonna say reading different books of different genres, especially kind of like outside of what you would usually read, doesn't make you less of a person, but rather I think it makes you a better person overall, because you're really broadening your horizons. You're exposing yourself to something that like you usually wouldn't be exposed to, different cultures of people, different ideals. So like those people who like look down on books, sometimes can just be really snobbier because they like don't understand it themselves, or they have a preconception of like what books should be. And that's just a really narrow and limiting view. Not just on books, but life in general. I think that ties into a bigger picture and a bigger social and political issue, I guess.
Yeah. Like I agree with January sort of wholeheartedly on that point. But I wouldn't kind of narrow it down to just that romance is less respected. I definitely don't think it is less respected, just because like that's what the basis of most of our books and our music and our art is about. We love romance in this society, in this world, let's say. But I think it has more to do with women and even young girls' interests. I'm thinking along the lines of like young adult fiction and stuff like that. It's definitely taken less seriously. And I think like there is a lot of snobbery and pretentiousness happening in kind of like the book reading community, let's say. Like if a girl says, oh, I love to read, but then she opens up that what she loves to read is like YA fiction, Rainbow Rowell books and Cruel Prince series and stuff like that, she definitely won't be as respected as as somebody else who says that they read like Franz Kafka or Nietzsche or stuff like that, both of which are valid genres, valid things to read, but it's pretty often that girls are kind of put down for enjoying YA, I think. So I think January is kind of on the right path when she explains her problem with that. But I wouldn't limit it to just women's fiction. I would kind of expand it to women in general, young girls.
I think it was Leigh Bardugo who wrote like All That Sticks of Crow, Shadow and Bone stuff. He says that people love to sneer at things young women love.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely agree with that point that the book is trying to make. But in a way, the book proves that idea that what young women like shouldn't be respected, right? By forcing this sort of weird suicide thing in it. Even like parts of Gus's backstory, because, big trope in romance novels, the love interest has to have just that little bit of brooding trauma to make him like have to like distance himself from the character. And at times it got really dark and really hard. And I was like, can we like take a step back real quick? I want a brooding love interest, not one that seriously needs to go to therapy.
Exactly. God, I really hate that whole idea of using trauma as character development for a character, as if humans themselves aren't interesting and complex enough besides their trauma to be worth writing about. It's just, it's definitely worth writing about, but when it's overused as a trope or as a plot device just to make somebody interesting, like in Gus's case, it's just why, I found him so interesting prior to knowing about kind of what he went through. There's a line in the very beginning of the book where it references the fact that he worked at a graveyard. I was like, oh my God, I want to read about him. And then we did not get anything about that. I was like, I want to read about Gus's times working at the graveyard.
Yeah, I would read a book by Gus.
What about my girl January? I know you guys like kind of like are saying like all these things about her, but I really related to her a lot. As a very optimistic, very giggly, very much a young girl who read a lot of that kind of quote unquote disrespected YA literature in high school. Mm-hmm. I really related to her struggle to be taken seriously.
Oh, definitely.
Lots of times when she was like, I think there was like a quote where she's like, I don't know, she says like some girl name, if my Julias were Johns, my books would be considered literary fiction rather than romance.
Exactly.
And I really related to her struggle for that. And I don't know, I really liked her for that reason. I was really rooting for her throughout the entire time, like to like find that love for life again.
Yeah. Granted, as much as I didn't like January, I also did not like Gus that much. It's just that for me, I think my judgment on January is that I feel like Emily Henry tried too hard to make January so many things. And like, I think she would have been a much more likable character if Henry like didn't try to make her both like very optimistic and a fairy princess and happy and finds the beauty in life, but also now completely disillusioned and snarky and all these things that women can be, all these things, but rather than showing rather than telling me about all these things that she is, I would have liked for her to just show me through the writing. And I just didn't get that. And, at times there were certain comments that January would say that I'd just be like, oh my God, please. But same with Gus, like at times Gus fell into that other kind of crooked smile,
yes,
tall, dark, and handsome
like archetype. You guys were saying you loved that like graveyard thing, and I was like, that is like a caricature of a romance interest. I was like, I hated that so much. I was like, thank goodness she didn't bring that up ever again.
that made him kind of like cool for me, but then when I had to read about his crooked smile and him disappearing every 5 minutes, I was like, I'm over this. Like, that's so tropey, like it's not every day that I read about somebody that worked at a graveyard, but the crooked smiles and the aloof and takes himself so seriously behavior, I was like, I'm over this. Like you said at the beginning of the recording, Abby, they felt like caricatures. I couldn't take them seriously at times.
Yeah, I want to know how like he drinks so much and stays so thin.
I think she like mentions like straight up at the beginning of the book, it's like good genetics.
Yeah, I mean, like he sits at a desk a lot and writes and doesn't do much exercise and drinks so heavily.
It's the rom-com trope where it's like, oh, yeah. I don't work out, but somehow I have perfectly toned abs and dancer arms and legs and I'm beautiful and a supermodel.
Crazy.
But again, like I think like the way we read this book reveals what we wanted it to be. I skimmed over all that suicide stuff because it was like, absolutely not. I'm here for a good time, not a hard time. And I'm wishing it embraced that sort of rom-com cheesiness 100%. Like, yes, there were caricatures, but I don't care. I loved them anyway. Give it to me. You guys are like more so looking for like this really interesting book that like makes serious commentary. And I don't think either of those books are bad by themselves, but by trying to be both at the same time, it was stretching itself too thin.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say I went into it wanting it to be this super deep book. I think I was disappointed at the fact that it tried to make itself such a deep book. Which in the end, I just ended up being interested at the parts, about the suicide cult, because I think those were the parts that were kind of very well written, and there was more like, I feel like Emily Henry put more thought into the suicide cult thing than she did at times with the plot outside of that, like I said before, like I was a huge Sarah Dessen lover. Like she writes these sorts of books, she writes beach reads and books that you read over vacation. Like I think I used to really be obsessed with this book called Love and Gelato. This girl goes to Italy and she finds love and eats a lot of gelato. Like I love those. Have you ever read Anna and the French Kiss?
Oh yeah.
Oh, come on. I think now I love them less because of certain problematic things within them. But overall, like I really love those books. And I went into Beach Read expecting that. And then it tried kind of took a hypocritical route in being like, yes, I am all for this, sappy rom-com stuff, but I can also be deep. And I'm like, I'm sure you can, but why?
With the suicide cult, please.
Why with the suicide cult?
I think you just described this book perfectly with that. What else to talk about? Like you just like summed it up exactly. Like it couldn't quite be this YA rom-com we almost wanted it to be, where everything was cheesy and everything was good and happy. Yeah. And it couldn't quite be this serious.
I love those books. I love the I would have loved to read the books that January wrote, but there was a scene actually. It talks about January talks about how when she was with her mom during the cancer treatments and stuff like that, that's when she first picked up the romance books and they offered her an escape. I would have loved to know who those authors were. Like, was it, I think she references like Eat, Pray, Love at one point. I love Eat, Pray, Love. I would have loved to see, was it, like Nora Roberts? What if, she said Sarah Dessen's name? I would have been like, oh my God, Sarah Dessen. January, I so know what you mean. But then later on, there's a reference to what Gus reads or like his library, and it brings up Faulkner and Fabio, I think at some point, and it brings up like all these deep books, and I'm like, once again, it kind of is a hypocritical thing because it didn't really take seriously the books that January was reading, but it had to just point out what Gus was reading and all that deep stuff that he was into. And I was like, both are great, but once again, you're putting down what this book, or like at least what January is all about. It gets lost in its own criticism. I was like, come on, Beach Read, stay sappy.
Yeah, the author in an interview said that part of the reason why she did that, kind of putting down quote unquote romance novels, is because when she wrote her first book and got it published, she told somebody, I don't remember who it was in her life, but the dude was like, whatever pays the bills.
Yeah, I remember I actually read that book in high school, that first book she published. It's like The Time Between Us or something. And it's this YA rom-com about it's kind of like, it was described on the back as the time traveler's wife for teens, which I was obsessed with at the time. And I remember liking it. The only thing I remember about it is that the girl was obsessed with her high school and painted a bee on her wall. But I remember really loving that book. And but at the same time, I remember kind of getting a lot of crap from my friends at the same time for reading it, because they're like, why are you reading a contemporary romance. That's so weird. And I really liked that this book was trying to comment on that, but I don't know. It felt like even the author didn't fully believe herself when she said these kinds of books can be taken seriously for the escapism they provide.
And even without the aspect of escapism, like, it's just a good book. Like, one of my favorite books back in high school used to be this book by Rainbow Rowell called Attachments. Have you ever heard of it?
I have read other Rainbow Rowell books.
Well, actually, I think Attachment is one of her lesser known ones, but it's literally, I think, about as rom-com as it gets. Just two people. I think that, like, this one guy falls in love with this girl who works at his company, who, like, he has to, like, read her emails because he works in, like, IT or something, and he kind of falls in love with her in that way. I recognize that it sounds a bit,
no, I'm like falling creepy. In love with it.
I definitely recommend it, but it was just, it's very simple, but it was also just such a perfect and, like, fun read. But it's like, I wish that's what Beach Read had stayed being, and it just fell in on itself.
Well, we've talked quite a bit about this idea that the book is trying to be too many things at once, not really quite achieving either one of those for any of us. But let's turn this a bit more fun, because it's quite a depressing thing. This book is at the heart of it about a vacation. Whether it's a fun one or not for January is up for debate. But what kind of places in the book kind of inspired you and were like, wow, that seems like kind of a fun thing. I want to be there. I want to, like, explore that place more.
You go first. If you can. I think I've talked enough.
I was going to say that coffee shop and bookstore at the same place, in, like, the little town in Michigan. I don't know, just that entire town. It just seemed like a really fun time to, like, go to the lake and then go into town. And there's, like, this cute little bookstore run by a quirky lesbian lady who seemed so fun, if straight out of, like, the trope factory. And it just seemed like a fun little town I would have loved. And also the movie. I love You've Got Mail. As soon as they said You've Got Mail, I was like, that is my movie. That is my rom-com. I was like, send me to that place. Have you guys ever heard of that movie? It's kind of lesser known. It's Pride and Prejudice, but with bookstores.
Oh my God. I'm sold.
It's got Tom Hanks.
I might even
in
watch it tonight. I love Tom Hanks.
It has, like, that 90s creepy rom-comness to it. We're like, ooh, that's like stalking right there. That's not cool. But if you just, like, if you ignore that, it's cute.
I literally just said that about Attachments. I mean, it's, gotta suspend your disbelief a little bit, But I love books. Like, I would even call it a guilty pleasure. Like, it's genuinely just a pleasure. I love the whole trope of, like, a beach house oasis that people go off to and discover themselves. Like, I am bringing her up again, but, like, most Sarah Dessen books were about that, just a girl going off to, like, this beach house or this beach town for the summer and kind of discovering something incredible about herself. I love those. I really, really love those.
Yeah, it'd be really nice to have, like, a beach house, just kind of like a summer getaway.
No one wants to visit the landmark of the oh, there you go, you brought it up. I was gonna say no one wants to visit the suicide cult landmark.
I definitely
do. I don't think I camp there, but it'd be fun to camp up there in the woods somewhere, not near New Eden, but
in an educational sense, or in in a sense where I wouldn't, set up camp there. I think I definitely would love to visit the New Eden headquarters, if we can call it that.
Yeah, like to get your true crime fix and just be like, wow, that's a pretty cool place.
Yeah, or just, for the sake of just seeing that, just being like, whoa, it's crazy.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the cheesiness of the book. And we've kind of talked about how it tries to subvert the romance genre a little bit with that whole cult thing. And we don't necessarily agree it worked well. But what parts do you think like she embraced? Like what parts of the book do you identify as like, wow, that's a rom-com trope that she's just embracing to the fullest? And which ones do you think she was trying to like step away from, even if we don't necessarily agree she did that well?
I kind of loved the very, very tiny subplot with Shoddy and the haunted hat dude. I love them. I really liked that whole idea that they were going with, and kind of learning about their budding romance through like text message and what she tells January. I personally really, really loved Shoddy, even though we got very little from her, but I kind of really liked them too.
Yeah, I kind of took that subplot as like a way of her gender flipping the traditional rom-com. Like Shoddy's the I don't know if there's like a male version of a womanizer. And that she just runs around all the time, kind of quote unquote falling in love and then ditching them. And then you've got the man with a very weird, quirky trait of wearing hats. And he like changes her life and teaches her all about love. And I really liked that story.
Yes, agreed. Oh, I'd love to, actually, this kind of like goes off topic, but I would love to meet with the book club ladies. I would love to have them on the podcast. I think it'd be a hoot.
Yes. They all seem like a good time. They probably would have loved the one.
Oh yeah.
Definitely.
Jonathan, you've been pretty quiet. What did you think of the Shoddy haunted hat subplot?
Oh, I thought that was kind of funny. I did enjoy that part.
Yeah.
Thought the nicknames they came up with were pretty funny and pretty creative.
I don't know. Did you guys ever do that like in high school, especially?
Definitely.
Like, you didn't name the guy. I remember one of ours was Clark Kent.
I think now if I were to think back on any of my high school crushes, I could not tell you what their actual names were. I think I could just tell you like, yep, I had a huge crush on Pineapple. I don't remember.
Oh,
but
we had a Pineapple too.
We all had Pineapple.
Is that just a girl thing, Jonathan?
Yeah, I never really did that with the guys.
So. You should try it out. Let me tell you, it's a lot of fun.
All right. So would you guys read another book by Emily Henry? Do you think you would give her another shot, or did this book kind of turn you off her?
I would definitely give her another shot. I believe in second chances for sure.
I almost picked one of her other books for the book of the month. I think it was People We Met on Vacation. I almost did, but I think I skipped that month in the end. I probably wouldn't read another book by her. I'm not the target audience for her. So,
I have a thing to say about target audiences. I think at some point the book itself brings it up, but if it's a truly good book, whether you're the target audience or not, at some point I think it shouldn't even matter. And I feel like that's where Beach Read falls short, because I'm like, well, if it was a really truly good book, no matter the genre, whether it's a rom-com or some serious piece of literary fiction, if it was a good book, I think it wouldn't have mattered what kind of audience it was trying to reach, Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. The biggest thing I can think of is like children's literature for that, where like people always look down if like they see you read like a little, like a quote unquote little bit kids book, like other than Harry Potter. If you read any of those books, people are like, why are you reading a children's book?
Oh my gosh. So right before we read this, I read a book. It's a children's book. It was translated from, I think it was Polish. I don't remember what the original translation was, but it was so good. Honestly, one of the best books. It was The Letter to the King, and then the sequel, The Secrets of the Wildwood. I read the sequel right before we read this. It was just so good. I actually do enjoy some children's books. Like that was a children's book. Narnia is a children's book. That one's pretty good.
Love Narnia.
Percy Jackson.
as the Neil Gaiman fan, Coraline.
Yes, I read that for the first time over Halloween, and it genuinely like creeped me out. I was like,
it shivers my timbers. Let me tell you, the movie and the book achieves it. I mean, the Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman.
Yeah, but this idea that like a good book is a good book, it doesn't matter who it's for. I think is a very true statement that this book is trying to make, and I definitely agree with. I know, and it goes back to YA. Like you said, like I think we all can agree that there's this idea around reading YA and like this negative connotation of it being lesser literature.
Right. And it's like I have read some YA books that have taught me more than like a Mitch Albom book, which I love Mitch Albom. He wrote Tuesdays with Morrie and I think The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. I love him, but there have been some YA books that I have read that have just completely shifted my worldview. And I think, you know, target audience aside, sometimes it really is just a good book, and that's what matters.
I don't know, after reading, like as much as I enjoyed this book, it was a very fun time for me. I don't know, it just got me craving like a good rom-com.
Yeah, I definitely wish it had been a fun time, and then it ended up not being a fun time.
I don't know.
Might I recommend some Sarah Dessen books?
Oh, yes.
Fluffy rom-coms.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess that's what this book almost was. It was a fluffy rom-com, but then I was like, every now and then there was like a thumbtack stuck in there. And you're like, ooh, ow, what is this? I just wanted a hug.
That's the perfect visual for it. Exactly.
Speaking of visual, what did we think of the cover?
It was just a sigh for me. Like it didn't, if I saw it at like a bookstore or something, I don't think it would catch my eye in any way. Not, you know, not to judge a book by its cover, but you know, like the very, kind of reminds me of like Instagram line art. That's just kind of like they do outlines and then they fill it in and that's it. Like that's exactly what it reminds me of. So it lacks creativity, but at the same time, it's exactly what this book is. Except it shows them, you know, like writing on like beach towels, and I'm like, where was that?
Yeah, there was that. If there's one thing that like genuinely obsessed me about this book, it's that it is marketed as a beach read, and it talks about being a book on the beach, like book written on the beach and stuff. And there was like 2 scenes, both of which the 2 characters were like, oh, I don't really like the beach.
Oh, exactly.
It's very misleading because it looks like they're reading on the beach, just like hanging out, but they never did that. I don't think they even wrote on the beach, did they? They were mostly in their kitchen.
Yeah, like by their windows and stuff. Like, come on. Imagine you go to the beach and you're ready for like this very fluffy book about people at the beach writing and reading, and then it's like Suicide Cult, you know?
Yeah. I think a better cover would have been like a picture of their 2 houses with like the lake in the background. And maybe we could have like 2 characters on the beach in between the house or something, like in the distance. I don't know.
Yeah. Or like their notes, the notes that they interchange over the windows, something to do with that. Anything but them at the beach. It doesn't really happen. Did she ever even wear a swimsuit? I'm trying to think.
I don't think so.
I know she had to borrow one when they went over to I don't remember her name's house now. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I don't know. I'm thinking of like a better cover would probably be, I know, first of all, not beach read as the title.
Definitely not.
Maybe cabin read or lake read.
Yeah, I think that tied into like how the novel didn't really know where it was going. Start with the name.
This book needed like one draft more.
Yeah. Definitely.
Just to kind of tidy itself up. I think like a really cool cover would have been like seeing the lake, and then in the distance you see their 2 houses with like lights on across from each other.
Oh,
yeah. So like the reverse of what I was saying. That's probably better, honestly.
No, I don't know. I just
honestly anything but this cover.
No. I wish they had like, I don't know, now that like we've like talked about it, I'm like falling out of love with the book. Like,
I'm so sorry.
No, like it's always good to like critically analyze books, even if I don't want to. In my mind, I just like, I don't know, I just really like January as a character. I really related to her. And I wanted this to be a good book because of that. But just because I've related to a struggle the character had, doesn't necessarily make it a good book.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Do you want to answer if we were making a movie of the cast?
Oh my gosh, I've been ready. You guys go first. Who would you cast in a movie?
Let's do it together because I haven't thought about it at all.
Okay.
I haven't thought about it either. Like I tried. I think I tried to come up with some, but I literally couldn't. So
let's just stick with maybe January and Gus for the main characters.
Okay.
For movie. So first up, January. Think of an actress.
Suddenly, I don't know any actresses. Suddenly,
or even like not even actresses, like characters in rom-coms, maybe that you were like inspired by.
I pretty much just watch Adam Sandler a rom-com, so I don't think Adam Sandler will make a good Gus.
I was thinking Nick Miller from New Girl.
Oh,
actually, no. Adam Sandler would be perfect as Gus. That would be so funny. I would watch that movie.
He's done like a lot of really good rom-coms.
Handsome Adam Sandler.
He did a serious movie. I don't remember what it's called.
Uncut Gems.
Where he's like I honestly don't remember the plot anymore. But he was a serious character. So he can do it.
No. What was that movie with Drew Barrymore? It wasn't The Wedding Singer. Where Drew Barrymore had like this condition where she lost her memories every single morning.
50 First Dates.
Yes.
I love that movie.
Yes.
He was a pretty serious, brooding character in that.
A little bit. I'd say 50%. 50%, because there was definitely some very funny aspects to the movie, but it was, sad.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like Gus, if there was a movie, they would probably play up his goofiness a bit more. Like how goofy it is that you work in a graveyard. That's so weird.
I love that.
It's so funny and weird and really dark, but I don't know. If they maybe played up the goofy factor for that in the movie, Adam Sandler would be perfect.
Yeah.
You reminded me. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no.
No, go, Leslie.
I was going to say, I think actually it would kind of go the opposite way. I think they'd play up that tall, dark, and handsome aspect of it, considering, the movies.
Are you saying Adam Sandler isn't tall, dark, and handsome?
Yeah, oh, definitely. I definitely think he is. Maybe just not Gus type, tall, dark, and handsome. Same.
I imagined Johnny Depp, like when I was picturing him, kind of like a cross between Johnny Depp. I don't know. I guess Pedro Pascal, like that facial hair. I guess I don't know. Everything always goes towards him whenever I'm casting things. If you haven't noticed by now.
Have you guys ever seen the movie called Chocolat?
No, wait. I've seen Like Water, Like Chocolate. And that's different.
No. It's like Chocolat is like a woman makes kind of like magical chocolate in a small town in France. Well, Johnny Depp is in that movie. And I think that version of Johnny Depp would work perfectly for Augustus. Yes.
I definitely agree.
Okay. You said Drew Barrymore earlier, and I could definitely see Drew Barrymore as January Andrews. Drew Barrymore has such a fun and sweet demeanor and very lived in, and I just think she would perfectly fit January. Like if I saw her, I would be like, yeah.
You know what this book kind of reminded me of? Last Christmas. I don't know if you guys have seen that with Emilia Clarke.
No.
No, I've seen the trailer though.
Okay. Spoilers. It's about a girl who had a heart transplant and has been disillusioned with life. Similar to how our girl January has been kind of disillusioned with everything. So I pictured Amelia Clark because she's the main character.
Look her up.
But similar to Drew Barrymore, I feel like Amelia Clark has that very like quirky sort of like rom-com character that you could really see.
Oh, yes.
I've only seen her in Game of Thrones.
So you're like,
that's all I had to say.
I've never seen her in Game of Thrones, so.
Okay.
I know her from Me Before You.
Oh, yes. That's another rom-com. Or not a rom-com at all. That's like really sad, isn't it?
It is really sad. But I mean, it has its, little rom-com-y parts.
But then again, like, that's perfect. Like the sweet, quirky character who like struggles with life.
Exactly. Yes. Oh my God. You on the dot with Amelia Clark.
Amelia Clark and Drew Barrymore, I think.
Yeah. They just have very sweet and joyful demeanors. I love them both to death. Like,
Like they could yell at you and you'd be like, thank you. That's so nice of you.
You're like, that's so sweet.
I know. For Gus, I definitely agree with Johnny Depp. Like that could work really well. I just kind of felt like she was trying to do, all I know is like McDreamy. I forget. I don't even know the doctor's real name from Grey's Anatomy. I don't know his full name.
Is it with a D? No.
It is with a D. Ah. Oh my gosh. Like you guys know who I'm talking about. The main guy that Meredith ends up with.
Derek Shepherd.
Yes, Derek Shepherd. Okay. Just everything about him. Even like the whole like my wife cheated on me with my best friend thing. Like that's straight out of season 3, ma'am.
I see it. I totally see it.
And he's got the cheekbones, I think. Like play
does he have the crooked smile though?
Oh yeah. I think he does.
He does.
But I feel like there were a lot of really cute rom-com like tropes, not even tropes, but like homages, I think is a good thing. Like most obviously the note thing, I think is Love Actually. Yeah. Did you guys spot any others?
Music video? Actually, I have one that this is kind of like what in the very beginning of the book kind of made me really like it, but I loved their first official book interaction. Like, we know that like they were like, rivals in college and all that, but I completely fell in love with their first interaction, that he calls her like a liar or something. Like, I don't even remember it. But they have like this little piece of banter that I was just like, oh my God, hello? I loved it. And then, kind of fell off. But I really liked their very first. I would consider it a little bit of a meet cute almost. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Definitely. I really liked, if there's one thing that this book did well, it's enemies to lovers, where they actually were enemies at the beginning for like real reasons.
I would have really loved to see more of that.
Yeah. Like this idea that he like said this kind of off mean thing to her that he didn't realize how bad it was, but like it like really hurt her and like has led to this deep insecurity her whole life. I thought that was like, that's a genuine reason not to like someone. I feel like, especially you, Leslie, you read a lot of YA books where enemies to lovers is a very big trope. And lots of times, oh yeah. I mean, that's enemies to lovers done very well. But lots of times they're enemies not for very good reasons. It's like he glared at me once, I think, in math class.
Yeah, I think I would say this book goes more with like rivals to lovers. I wouldn't go as far as calling them enemies.
Oh yeah, rivals is better.
Yeah, but he definitely had some ignorant comments that I think are worthy of kind of January giving him the side eye.
Did you guys ever read Anne of Green Gables when you all were younger?
No, but I saw the show and completely.
I think like their rivalry,
I love it,
was very much inspired by that, especially like his character description, even like.
Oh, oh my God, you're so right. Oh my God, you're absolutely right. Anne as January, that ray of sunshine. Oh my God, you're absolutely right. And then Gilbert as a.
Yeah, they really played up his angst in the show. Perfect. My gosh. But I don't know. Another really cute kind of throwaway thing. I think I talked about it, like her shoe thing was like, that's such like a common YA thing, especially for like Hallmark movies. Or like I feel like she was poking fun at like John Green novels with that. Did you notice any, Jonathan?
I'm not super familiar with the tropes, so I don't even remember the shoe thing, honestly.
I just remember it was like, all I brought was like cowgirl boots, thigh highs, and sparkly Converse. And I was like,
perfect.
Oh, I probably skimmed over that.
All I remember are the Daisy Dukes and the Peaks of Prince sweatshirt.
I mean, I think that's another
impression on me.
That's like a huge homage. Like, I can't imagine she didn't write that. It was like Gilmore Girls. I think we've all kind of like talked our feelings out with this book.
Definitely. All my feelings have been laid out on the table. I was going to say the last thing. For the music that we said that we were going to like.
Sorry.
I picked out a really good one for this.
Okay.
For Beach Read.
I need to hear.
Have you guys ever heard My Favorite Game by the Cardigans?
No.
I don't think I have.
Let me just say that I think the general feel of the song definitely matches the vibe for Beach Read. It's like very fun and a little bit quirky, and it's just like upbeat. I mean, the Cardigans are the ones who sing the love me, say that you love me, right? That song, Love Pool. I love the Cardigans, and I think My Favorite Game, I would definitely recommend that you guys listen to it. Just because it's just a really good song overall, not just tying it to Beach Read. But that's kind of like the song that I picked out in my head for Beach Read.
No,
play it on the trailer or something.
I don't know. I'm really glad you brought that up because I was struggling to find a song to like fit this in my mind.
First song that I thought of.
I was just thinking of like general YA rom-com like general like rom-com songs that you hear in every single one. Like, what's that one from Legally Blonde, where it's like,
"Sun's Up."
Yes, that
one. Perfect Day by Hoku.
Yes.
Hoku. Hoku. God, if there's anything I love, it's like tying music to books. Any book that I'm reading, whether it be like a YA or anything. So when I saw that, I was like, I immediately jumped on it.
Mm-hmm. No. What about you, Jonathan? Did you have any songs that reminded you of this book?
No, not really. Nothing comes to mind.
We're both gonna have to check out that Cardigan song now. It sounds cute.
Please do. Yeah. I love it. I mean, considering like the whole idea that they make like a bet and stuff, and the title of the song is My Favorite Game. I was just like, oh, that's perfect. If you guys listen to it, let me know if you like it.
I will be listening to it right after this. I have like a playlist. Ooh, I'm exposing myself. I have a playlist full of my favorite love songs in existence.
Oh my God. I literally have a playlist. I have a playlist called Romantic something.
Hopeless Romantic.
It literally one day randomly, once again exposing myself, but one day just randomly blew up on Spotify. Like, I mean, I wouldn't say blew up. It was just like got like 40 people randomly followed that playlist. And I was like, what the heck? Like,
nice.
I made it like, I think after watching 500 Days of Summer, I think it might have been. Like, it was a while ago. And I know that's not the most rom-com-y movie, but after that, I was like, oh my God, I need to make a hopelessly romantic playlist. So yeah.
Well, I will be looking for that on Spotify now.
Oh my God, no.
I love a good romance playlist. I love just a good love song.
I think maybe like Happy Together by the Turtles would be a good like trailer song.
Ooh.
That might be cute.
Especially because it's like so cheerful. If we wanted to lean into that whole like angsty thing, I think it could work well. Because lots of times I feel like that song is played over like not so happy times.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
I'm bringing up my romance playlist and saying.
Actually, let me see. I don't know. When I think of romance, I think of the Cardigans because they make such like fun little romantic music, but it kind of, yeah, like literally in my playlist, Love Fool by the Cardigans is there.
Ooh, you know what would be really funny? Words by F.R. David, especially because Gus's whole thing. He's like, I can't communicate well. And like that song's like, I can't.
I love that song.
Yes.
Words don't come easy. That's a good, like that's good for Gus. That's definitely good for Gus.
Yeah. Wow. Now I'm going to be listening to a bunch of love songs after this.
Jonathan, if you had to pick like an artist for Gus or January to listen to, who would you pick?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like Gus is like a rock guy. Like he might listen to some metal.
Might listen to like the Doors or something.
Maybe.
He might even listen. Actually, you know what? Considering that like Everybody Hurts by REM was like mentioned at the beginning, I imagine he's also kind of like a Simon and Garfunkel type dude.
Yes.
Right?
I was gonna say like he listens to like John Denver, that kind of crowd.
Oh my god. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Both rock and kind of like that folky type music.
Oh, he listens to the Eagles 100%.
Who doesn't?
Like if he's really in his feelings, he might listen to like, well, I mean, I mentioned the Doors, but I was gonna say like Jim Morrison, but might listen to Led Zeppelin if he's like really in his feelings. Might even like go down like the Smiths route, but like I don't want to put that on Gus.
I feel like it's mentioned like that he doesn't really like loud music at the beginning either, because like he talks about his party and they were playing a song really loud and he's like, I don't really like that kind of stuff. But
I might have missed that.
That was that was our second meet cute, because they had the first one that Leslie was talking about, and then the second one where she was just like, I'm so tired, I just want to sleep. They're playing this music really loud.
I really like that scene that she just like kind of like broke down a little bit and she was like, I'm so tired.
That
I related that.
I started crying. I was like, when you're so sad and you're just like, you can't even like explain it. You're just like, I'm tired, man. Just let me sleep. So what do you think January would listen to?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe some like Maroon 5 or like Bruno Mars.
You know, I think knowing January, I think she would have a really good appreciation for like some early 2000s, like No Doubt.
Okay.
You know what I'm thinking?
Yeah, no I think she has like this really strong, like it's kind of talked about through the book that her childhood is something very important to her. So I feel like she listens to like a lot of 90s, early 2000s nostalgia music, like the Spice Girls.
Yeah, definitely. She definitely had like a little bit of a punk phase, I feel like.